Okay, welcome to all our IICT members. We appreciate you joining us today for this Masterclass webinar with our founder and CEO, Lawrence Ellyard. My name's Kate. I'm Head of Content and Marketing here at IICT. I'll be interviewing Lawrence today, so it'll be very interactive, and I'm going to be asking him all your burning questions. We have over 234 questions that were submitted. That is quite a response. So thank you, everyone, for sharing where you're at, where your frustrations are within your business, where you would love more wisdom, and we are here to help you today. Some of the questions were quite similar, so we've tried to put them into different topics so that we're keeping everything sort of thematic. Some of those topics I'll just share with you briefly so you know what we're covering today. The first is building your business. So how are we going to do that? What are some tips that we can do to share that along the way? Of course, marketing. Everyone wants to know how to better increase their visibility in the world. AI, that came up quite a lot. A lot of you are asking a lot of questions around AI, its impact on the complementary therapy world, as well as how it could benefit. And those of you who are feeling like, well, what's in it for me? How's this going to benefit my business? Lots of questions on social media, which makes total sense. It's a big social media world that we live in. And quite a few questions on book publishing, which is a great question for Lawrence because he has published 9 books. So he's well versed in sharing his wisdom with us. So I'm just going to pass over to Lawrence before we get into the burning questions. And Lawrence, thank you so much for coming along today and sharing all your wisdom. What did you want to share with our beautiful members who are tuning in today before we get started?
Well, thanks, Kate. Yeah, like I'm really here just to hear what the questions are, and how I like to do these things is very much unprepared, so a bit unscripted, and we'll just see what comes out of it. So I'm sure there'll be lots of pearls there that our viewers can take away and implement. And I'm very much interested in looking at what are some practical things that people can do. You know, it's not like you need like an entire team to deploy these ideas and you don't have to spend thousands of dollars. So there's definitely some great low expensive marketing hacks and different tricks that you can do that, you know, that isn't going to break the bank. I know a lot of people in this space are, you know, it's not necessarily a full-time career. Other people it is. But it's just like, what are some of the ways that we can, you know, get some leverage out of what we've got? Yeah.
Absolutely. And you've just picked up on a few things that I was going to mention, which is so many people who have submitted questions were saying things like, what are some inexpensive hacks? You know, how would you spend your advertising budget? And I think even though, and I'll just remind everyone, you know, we're 23 years in. I mean, this whole webinar is to celebrate our 23rd birthday, but Lawrence started by himself. You know, he's been there, he's been where you are, he's done it all himself. He was, you know, admin hat, you know, marketing hat, business hat, all the hats. And that takes time to build it to a point now where he has a team of people working with him, and those roles have been delegated. But you've done it all, haven't you? So you know where the pain points are in growing a business.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely one of those things where you've got to bootstrap at the beginning, and yeah, you do. You wear every hat imaginable, which is hard, yeah, and it does take time, and so definitely persistence is a big part of it. I think a lot of people give up too soon because, or they might try a particular approach with their marketing or how they're conducting their business, and then they do it once and then go, oh, that didn't work. But well, hey, maybe you needed to do it 20 times and optimize along the way. So yeah, that's always a big thing. I think people tend to give up a little bit too soon. You know, we're in this time where everyone wants, you know, instant everything, yeah? And it's a bit like that. And AI is very much like that, yeah? You put in a prompt and boom, there's the answer. So attention spans are definitely shorter as well online, so it's about, you know, cutting through the noise and hooking attention and then captivating the audience with a really great offer. So all those things are super important.
Great. All right, well, let's get into it. So The first question, and this appeals to a lot of our audience because so many of our members actually have multiple modalities. So they might be a Reiki practitioner, a hypnotherapist, a sound healer, they have quite a few different modalities. So the question that we were asked was, when you have multiple modalities, how do you sell yourself so as not to confuse your audience? Because I guess the thing is, if you're just a Reiki practitioner, you can just say, I'm a Reiki practitioner, and people know what a Reiki practitioner does. But if you have other, tools in your toolbox, how do you sell yourself with clarity so that people, again, with these short attention spans, just get it and they go, oh, I want a piece of that?
Yeah, well, I think the first important step would really be to identify, like, what are you trying to solve for the customer? What's their problem? Yeah. So a lot of the times when we think about our own business or our offering, we're thinking about our benefits and all the things that gets us excited, but it doesn't necessarily excite our customer. The customer's coming because they've got a particular problem, and we're here to solve that problem. So I think, if we're approaching our marketing or our messaging around looking at the desired outcome for the customer, and so we're a massage therapist and, they've got a sore back. So the thing we need to sell is about what it's like to be pain-free, having mobility, how you can, pick up your kids and play in the park or whatever it is. Yeah. So it's the whole idea of, selling the desired outcome. And then what are those tools? So having an understanding of, okay, well, if they came for this particular modality, it would bring this outcome. And so I think it's fine to have multiple modalities. You don't necessarily have to drill down on each one. It's more about the outcome for the customer. So what's in it for them? Not, people don't wake up going like, oh, I wonder what, new feature so-and-so business has. That they're not thinking that. They're thinking, how can I have this desired outcome, this quality of life, this better experience, better health, vitality, whatever it is for the individual. So you find that out by asking customers, right? Yeah. So actually, talking, surveying, finding out what they need, what could I do to improve. Like, that is a gold mine of information. They'll tell you what you do.
They'll tell you what they want. And I guess the other thing is, you can share your credentials on your social media bio or on your website, but selling the outcome is the important bit. And once they come to the appointment, you can say, well, today in your session, I'm going to use a variety of techniques, including, and then you can list, kinesiology, massage, sound healing, whatever. And then they know, oh, these are the modalities that we use, but maybe you don't need to pitch all of those modalities in your marketing necessarily.
Yeah, again, I think if you try to pitch too many things or too many messages,
confusing.
Exactly. People go like, huh, what's happening? So
that's true. All right, on to next question. So this is a great one, particularly relevant to right now, and you would have experienced this a couple of times over your 23 years in business. What are the best tips to attract clients when everyone is feeling the financial squeeze? So sometimes some of these modalities that our members offer are an extra. They're not necessarily an essential. In some cases, they are more essential, but sometimes they're an extra. So how do you tip the scale there in the favor of attracting clients?
Yeah, so look, some real inexpensive ways to build your profile, and is really through social proof, and that would be in the form of asking for reviews or testimonials, Google reviews. So, if someone's looking up, say, a particular therapy in their area, and they come across your profile, then the first thing they're doing is like, well, who else has worked with this person? How do I verify their quality, their standard? And so really, I think reviews are such a inexpensive way to get that proof, so that people go, oh, well, they did that. That was their result. That's just like me. Okay, I'll give them a go. If you come across someone with no reviews or just one or two, it's not very convincing. So I think I would definitely be reaching out to past clients and saying, hey, I'd love your feedback, and and just be really upfront, saying, hey, I'm trying to build my social credibility, and I really would love your feedback. And you can position it from the idea that, by helping me with this review, you're going to help other people as well, yeah, because we're generally in that idea of having reciprocity in our lives. And if we've come to a particular therapist, we had a great session, it was a great outcome, that's a great time to ask, actually, just after the session.
When they're still feeling all the love.
Yeah, exactly, right. Everyone's on the high of whatever the experience is, and even having like a simple, if they're a face-to-face session, it could be just a QR code, and oh yeah, just scan that with your phone and leave us a review on the way out. And yeah, so one has to be careful about, not overly incentivizing as well, because there's some rules around you can't, kind of bribe people for testimonials. But generally, like when people are very much in that, positive state, it's the best time to ask. Yeah.
Yep. And so in tough economic times, what are sort of some of the tips other than getting testimonials? How would you tell our audience how to pitch their modality, their business, when people have less kind of spare or extras money?
Yeah, so I guess the other thing you could do is asking your existing customers to refer you on to other people. So having some sort of referral system is a real inexpensive way. So really your past customers are your unpaid sales force. They're out finding your next customer. And of course, they're not waking up thinking, oh, I should refer somebody. Some people organically do it. They generally need to be asked, and if you ask them why you're asking them, I think that's super important, because you just say, oh, do you know anybody? And the reason I'm doing that is because I don't do a lot of online advertising, and most of my customers come from great people just like you, and who else do you know who could benefit, and then talk about the outcome, because it's this there's a lot of science in this, in psychology, around if you are asking for something, you'll get a certain result. But if you ask it and link it to the reason why, you'll get a much higher uptake on that. So again, after a session, or just after, just a day or two after, then a check-in call with the customer, like personalizing, is like so rare that we get that. Everything's like automation and impersonal. So even taking the time saying, oh, how you're going, and how did you go after the session, is there anything you need? And then, it can be like an organic conversation there, where it's really authentic, and asking, well, who else do you know that could benefit, and, love that. And maybe, if somebody, you can formalize that. If somebody is, taking the initiative to share it, you could say, hey, I'll give you some sort of bonus on your next session, or add a bit more onto the session time, something like that. It doesn't really cost. It doesn't cost you much, and it's not. Discounting can work, but it can be a bit of a race to the bottom. So I think I always encourage people to see if there's a value add versus a discount, because at the end of the day, we are doing our thing to help and benefit, but we also need to get paid, right? So we've got to keep the lights on. So I think it's important to have that mix. So aside from like referrals, another thing which is often overlooked is this, like having a guarantee, some sort of risk reversal strategy with your marketing. So having, if you're not pain free, or if you're not this or that, or not fully happy, then there's some sort of risk reversal where they come back and get the next session complimentary, or whatever it is. So in the client's mind, there's always this idea of like, well, I'm risking my time, I'm risking money, for this service, and I want to get a great outcome. So simply by having a guarantee, it can be that one thing that helps bring the customer from indecisiveness to go, okay, well, I've got nothing to lose here. So making make a great offer, and cut through. And the thing I'd say with guarantees, it should scare you a little bit. Yeah. So if
scare the customer or scare the practitioner?
No, scare the practitioner.
Hopefully not the customer.
Yeah, hopefully not the customer. You don't want to scare them off. But yeah, you want to have this idea that the guarantee should be a little bit edgy for you. Reality is most people won't take you up on a guarantee. Like we've got guarantees for various products over the years for what we do, and the amount of times we get asked is like you could count them on one hand over a decade. But having a really powerful guarantee can be that thing that sways the customer to take action to do business with you. And just another thing I would say too is really celebrating your clients and acknowledge them. And you could, for example, you might have had someone had done a session with you, they seemed like they had a good experience, and it's been a year later. Well, then that's a great opportunity. You can reach out to them and say, hey, it's our anniversary. It's been a year since you did work with us, and we'd love to welcome you back with some sort of special or whatever it is. So also, when you're doing your client intake form, getting the client's birthday deals. So again, when it's their birthday, you can message them. And obviously, how do you track all this? And you need a CRM, so some sort of customer management relationship management software, which is probably better than Excel spreadsheets and trying to remember when to reach out and all that. So using technology.
You picked up on a really important thing there. Where a lot of practitioners and people in business focus a lot on attracting new clients, but really looking at your existing clientele, the warm clientele rather than the cold, people who don't know what you do and what you're about. They are your best, as you say, your unpaid sales force. So that's a really good point. Using the warm leads that you already have by getting them to recommend their family and friends, or as you say, at a birthday. A birthday is a really nice way to connect with people because it doesn't feel pushy. It's like celebrating them, and you can say, happy birthday, just touching base. I just wanted to let you know, for your birthday, I'm offering you this. And that's such a nice way of not feeling too hardcore with the sales push. So that's a really good tip.
I think it's also just having that idea that if you can surprise and delight existing clients, then they're going to feel loved, and then that natural reciprocity kicks in. And it could just simply be, hey, I saw this amazing article on whatever it's related to their situation, and I just thought I'd share it. Like, that's it. You're not asking for anything.
Not pushing, yeah.
And again, so reciprocity is like, oh wow, they really care. They have an interest in supporting me, and I feel I should come. So when it does come time to say, hey, for something perhaps down the track, they're more likely to go, oh, okay, well, that was so helpful, and so I think you can't fake this stuff. You can't be like, oh, I'm going to fake be nice or fake, care. You do genuinely have to care. Like, I think it's so important. Like, authenticity is so, it's often underrated, but just that simple stuff, courteous, be a good human.
And look, I think most of our members are those people. We care. We're doing this because we're heart-centered, practitioners. We care about what we're doing, and we genuinely care about helping people. So this isn't a massive extension. And this actually leads into my next question, which is, how, as a small, and maybe in your first couple of years of business, how can you focus on growing your clientele base? So we've sort of touched on a few ideas there of using your existing clients to recommend, and loyalty programs, a birthday sort of program. But do you have any other suggestions of how, again, so far we haven't mentioned anything about socials, which we will get to, but for people who don't like showing up on socials and find that confronting, what are other tips in terms of growing your business that are, as you say, bootstrapped? You're still in that infancy within your business life cycle. What are some tips that you could share to grow your business clientele?
Yeah, so I think the first thing is, like, you've got, say, existing customers, then actually just say, hey, I'm really wanting to pick your brain for a minute. I just want to get some insights as, was there something I could have done better, or what else would you need? So I think just getting on the phone and talking to customers is such a powerful way to find out how you can optimize and improve your service. So that's definitely one. And you don't have to spend a huge amount of time doing that, but just actually, the follow-up, I think, is super important, and it's so rare and unusual. Another thing too, it's very old school, but just sending a little you could actually physically send them a note in the
like
post,
in the mail, old school
like
mail.
like
Snail
old school,
mail.
like a handwritten snail mail note, just saying, hey, I really appreciate it and thank you. And again, not asking for anything. You might have a little feedback survey that they could post back. Okay, so that's very, it's very hard old school kind of approach. But again, like we're so used to digital, this and that, it really cuts through. So that can be really powerful. And obviously, you're not sending it out to hundreds and hundreds of, well, maybe you are, but mostly you're not, right? So it's not going to cost too much, but you'll probably gather a whole lot of great insights and you go, oh, okay, I could tweak, I could optimize. Often we do the same thing, and that there's merit in that. But sometimes we're not, if we're doing repetition without strategy, we could be banging our head against the wall, not getting anywhere. So I think it's important to, get insights, pivot our messaging, definitely split testing. I mean, I'm always going on about that with you when we're talking about our marketing. It's like, okay, what's the A/B split test? There's always one better performing headline in an advertisement or in a marketing or a social media post or an email subject line. So taking the time to segment your database and going out with one message versus another and just seeing what the uptake is, and then one will generally outshine the other. So I'm a huge advocate
too with the snail mail approach. I think when you're bootstrapping and when you have perhaps less experience and less budget to go really big and you don't have a team, that's often when you're the most creative because you have to be, right? And so I think sometimes some of those suggestions are really great reminders that you don't have to have massive resources and a big team. Being creative is a great way to, as you say, surprise and delight clients because they probably used to bigger, businesses who do the standard things. And so going back to basics and coming up with something a little bit left of center can be quite fun, but also keeps, your budget in check and resources in check. So yeah, they're really good suggestions. All right, on to the next question. How do you learn? This is a really good question because I have experienced this as a practitioner myself. How do you learn how to price your service? Where are there industry standards published for pricing within certain modalities? That's a really, really good one. And I'm not sure if you ever found that yourself when you were doing Reiki or any of the other practices that you have done or modalities you've taught in the past. What would you say to that, Lawrence?
Yeah, well, I think it's important to do a bit of market research. So look at your competitors and look at what they're pricing. One thing I'd strongly advise is not to be, cheapest in market because there'll be someone else playing that game and it's a race to the bottom, and then, you're practically giving away everything. So again, I think it's good to look at like what's out there, and it's really around how you position your service. And then it's choosing which segment of the audience you want to go for. You might want to position yourself as a premium or VIP type experience. And, it's not just a massage session, but it's a massage with a facial, and it's there's a pampering and there's a package and there's a take-home pack of the goodies that you get, and it's a bundle, and you might market that specifically to people who are going on wellness retreats or whatever it is. So you could position yourself at a premium product, and of course if you're positioning yourself as a premium solution, you can charge premium pricing because people want the experience. Again, they want the outcome. They don't want this. It's not so much the session, it's about how they're going to feel afterwards, so that's the sell, or that, that's the value proposition. And I think it's important too, just to kind of get clear about, who are the types of people I want to service.
I was just about to say, it's sort of look at what you're saying is you need to do the reflection on who is your audience, what's your business model, and that then sort of leads you closer towards your price, doesn't it?
It does. And also getting clear about the, the particular problem you want to solve. So you can be super broad. So say if you're a, NLP, hypnotherapy type practitioner, then, you could get really focused and say, okay, I'm only going to work with people who want to quit smoking.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Or I'm working with postpartum mothers to recover or whatever it might be, right? So getting really specific about the problem you solve and getting very niche, Yeah, is
Yeah.
that the saying?
And then you own that niche, don't you? Like one of my neighbours is a naturopath, but she sort of realised a couple of years in she wanted to really double down on fertility. That was what the majority of her clients were coming to her for. And she did a lot of extra research then on hormones and fertility. And now she's the fertility specialist, and she's asked to do, podcasts and speak and writes articles. And so she's that becoming niche has actually supported her business growth. So that's a really good point you make. It comes back down to, again, the clarity of what it is that you're trying to do. You could be everything to everyone, and maybe that is your model, or you could go really niche, and that would answer a lot of these sort of growth questions.
Yeah, I think being everything to everyone is a very expensive route, right? Because you have to market in so many different areas. Yeah, who's got the budget for that? Not many people, right?
Yeah, that's right. Cool. Yeah. All right, next question. So this is a really good one, and I know you will have more than 3, but let's start with 3. What are your top 3 affordable marketing tips for a startup business? Which I think we've sort of covered some of those, but let's see what else you've got up your sleeve.
Yeah, well, I think, leveraging social media is a real no-brainer in that it's about getting clear about adding, valuable content on social. So that's the whole idea of like turning up on, and which spaces do you want to play in? Do you want to just do Facebook and Instagram, or do you want to go down TikTok? Do you want to do long form video on YouTube, how-to guides and things like that? So I think it's really about, do you want to be in every space? If you do, you're going to have a lot of time to that you need to fill to do those things. So, and it might be that you just want to go hard on one particular platform that is, specific to your audience. And if it's a younger audience, it might be more, down the Insta route, or, if it's an older demographic, it might be more Facebook or whatever it might be. Or, yeah, it depends on what it is that you offer, of course. But I think it's about consistency over time, like anything. Like, you go to the gym, you want to build muscles, you don't do one session a month and expect to see results. It's about every day or a few times a day or whatever, or week or whatever it is. So consistency over time, I think, is super important. Probably the second thing I'd say is, you can utilize the leverage of some of the platforms. So Facebook, for example, you can create a Facebook group, and then you're inviting people to join the group, and then they might get exclusive content there that they wouldn't get elsewhere, tips and suggestions. And you're also creating a forum where other people can share their ideas, and so creating a creating like a mini tribe, mini community specific to your niche where people can share. That's also, I think, super helpful. And the other thing too, outside of social media, then there might be a specific, newsletter that you send out, which is timely, anticipated. And again, it's not a bunch of advertising. It's actually like useful insights or ideas. So have building definitely a tribe, a list, mobilizing your database. There's so many opportunities in that. So again, it's kind of like what you were saying, if you have a warm list, well, why aren't you working it? People are always chasing the next customer, which is expensive and a lot of work. Get your existing customers to come back again and incentivize them to do so. Loyalty programs,
And one of the things I think a lot of people are scared to ask at the start, but when you first start and you literally have zero database, ask your friends and family to be your cheerleaders, because they can then recommend someone. So it doesn't mean that they're coming to you and you're giving a freebie. It's ask your neighbors, ask people in your community. If you're in a sporting club, ask them. If you go to meditation retreats and you met and you got all the details of the people at the retreat, tell them, hey, I've just launched my business. Could you recommend me? As you said before, we're too busy. There's too much going on in our head. There's so many tabs open in our window, in our brain. Yeah. And so we have to be given directions as to what to do. So ask your family and friends to be your advocates, and then that grows your database. And very quickly you can start to have a couple of hundred, and then you can move that up, towards 1,000. The more that you just really grassroots get the people working for you, and they are obviously vested interest in you succeeding. So they're going to be your best cheerleaders.
Yeah. So there's always like everyone knows somebody, right? So sometimes it might be like, okay, well, I'll just reach out to those people, and then you can
Yeah.
ask those people to reach out to those people. So
Yeah, and
the
that's how
people
the
they know.
domino effect starts.
Yeah,
Exactly.
exactly. Yeah, but yeah, I think the principal idea of all this, it can be, especially when you're starting out, is to like, oh, where do I start? And
Mm.
the message is start.
Yeah,
Like
yeah, just
start.
absolutely start. Like, and
Yeah,
you could get it wrong, but you'll learn and then you'll pivot accordingly. And something powerful, I went to a social media marketing workshop like, I don't know, 9 years ago. And I
yeah,
remember the lady who was running it said, and this was before TikTok was a thing, but she said, you're renting social media, but you own your database. So social media could change, you could get hacked, you could shut down, anything can happen. But if you own your database, you can always communicate with them. And whilst a lot of people don't love opening emails and feel like there's an overwhelm in their inbox, at least you have direct correlation and direct communication with that clientele. And if you make it worth opening, it's a great, way to get straight into someone's thoughts. But yeah, social media, while so important, and it is absolutely an essential with most businesses these days, you are renting it. So if you're spending all your time creating all this amazing content, but you're not looking after your email database, I do think maybe you need to think about that, split of energy and where you're
yeah.
putting your energy.
It's often overlooked, and we're busy posting content. And it's like, well, hey, what about your newsletter or your database where you can, send out a specific promotion? And so I think it's good to, this idea of keeping top of mind for your clients, and that's that recency frequency sort of strategy that even if it's something little, but just having a sort of like a monthly cadence, or it might be fortnightly or whatever it is, but just like I think people, they might ask for someone to do work with them, and then it's a no, and then they go, oh, that's it. They're never going to do anything with me. Well, it might be no now, but it might be yes later. Yeah. So it's often to do with timing. Like
Particularly in this
yeah.
industry, I agree. Like I went and saw a lady who does spiral energetics when I had back pain, and then she was amazing. I didn't need to see her for a while, but then I got another niggle, 5 months later, and I thought, oh, I might go see that lady again. So it's not necessarily that I didn't love what she did, but I just, because I follow her on socials, it reminded me, oh, I must go see her again. And so that you're right, it's some modalities you don't need to see regularly, and some you do, or some you might go for a specific, quitting smoking, hypnotherapy. You're going for a period of time quite intensively and you build this relationship, but then you might quit. So then after that, what's the relationship you have with that practitioner? And really, they should be recommending you, because if they quit smoking from your services, that's an incredible testimonial. So I think it depends a little bit on your modality as to your life cycle with that particular customer. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's also like having this idea that you can be a bit playful with your messaging and marketing, or a bit quirky, and that can cut through as well. Like you can just send them an email saying, we miss you, or I miss you, or it's been so long. It's almost like it's a love affair, kind of playing on that idea, and that you never ride anymore, or whatever it is,
Yeah. I miss our time together.
I miss our time together. Yeah. So, and then, and I'd, like to, welcome you back, and, some incentive that would.
Great. All right. So whilst we're talking about social media, we have touched on this a little bit, but what do you think are some of the most effective ways to market yourself on socials? I mean, because it's been 23 years, obviously there was no socials at the start of your career.
Not much, no.
And then there was the rise of blogging, and then MySpace, and then Facebook, and, Twitter, and then Instagram, now TikTok. Twitter's, a different platform. MySpace doesn't exist. I mean, there's been that many waves, and there will be more. So how have you followed that evolution, and what's your philosophy on the social media space, and which platforms did you find in the past, or are you finding now helpful?
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, yeah, I mean, we're playing in quite a few spaces. We recently added TikTok, and But yeah, like I find we're having a lot more engagement happening on Instagram. Facebook's always a bit of a staple, but yeah, again, it's a sort of an aging demographic in many ways. You know, like if you speak to different generations, some will be like, Facebook, that's for old people. You know, like that. My mum's on Facebook.
Yeah.
You know. And they'd be like, oh, I'd never go there, right? So other people, it might be like, you know, short form or little, you know, video snippets, like you know, we're talking seconds with attention spans, you know, and so if you don't hook that person with something that cuts through the noise, then you just, you know, you're not going to be really noticed. And I'd say, look, just stepping outside of socials. So going back to that, you know, test which platforms you're getting the outcomes, because people might be consuming your content and do nothing with it, right? And other people might consume it and then get on the phone or message you or outreach in some way. So yeah, again, test and measure the social platforms that are getting results. And the other thing that, you know, I think is a real opportunity is to step outside of social and just, you know, look at like SMS, for example. Yeah. So when you're like, if people are subscribing, say, to your newsletter, I would always encourage not just the email, but, you know, see if you can get the mobile number. And then you can use various software solutions where you can send out a particular short offer or incentive. On SMS. You're going to get a higher readership, more engagement. You know, whenever I get an SMS, and particularly if it's personalized, you know, it's like,
I was
hey,
going to say, like, you know, when you get those generic, this sales on, I'm like, how do you have my number? It's different, isn't it? When you have a practitioner relationship, it does feel more intimate. And I wouldn't be offended with an SMS coming through. It would be a nice way to cut through all the email inbox stuff. So I think it depends on how you do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and, you know, use the first person, like the sweetest words to someone's ears is their name, right? So having, you know, hey, it's the first name, just wanted to share, whatever. And look, really, you could even, like I used to do this back in the day before we were using software for these things, but I'd actually copy and paste the message out to my database and change the name, type it in manually.
How big was your database at the time?
It was probably up to 500,000, like very early days. So it took me a lot of time, but people really appreciated the personalization. It was really, they're like, oh, wow, thank you. You know, so, and again, so I think taking the time to personalize and linking it to, you know, might have been the last conversation you had or something specific to them.
A word of warning, though, make sure you change the name when you're doing a lot of copy pasting.
Oh, of course, right.
That's also a big fail if you get that person's name wrong and you're like, I can tell that you're doing 500 to 1,000 of these.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously, check your work and make sure it's accurate. I think also, you know, just remembering to be, you know, having good manners. You know, like, you know, thank you and please, and like it actually goes a long way. And just simple things too, like, you know, making sure your grammar's on point and there's not spelling errors and things like that as well. So again, you want to look professional, you want to be authentic, relatable, and, you know, being a good human, having, you know, appropriate respect for the other person's time.
Yes.
That's not it's not a small thing these days. You know, we're constantly bombarded with these messages.
Time is a currency. Yeah, it's
for sure. So respect the person's time and give them something valuable. You know, and people again will naturally want to reciprocate.
So, Lawrence, you've published 9 books, which is incredible. We had so many people ask questions about self-publishing, you know, going down the traditional publisher route. I think now is a time where there are so many options. We have Amazon print on demand. You could publish an ebook, you know, use your database, build up numbers, and then approach a traditional publisher. There's just so many options, which is wonderful. But I guess I'd be curious to hear about your experience. You know, of those 9, did you self-publish? Did you go to a traditional publisher? Have you done a bit of both? What's been your experience? And then we can sort of recommend based on that to our members, you know, what they want to hear in terms of the different options out there.
Yeah, for sure. Look, and the landscape has changed a lot over the years. And look, my first book was published, I think, in the year 2000. And my first book was a self-published, and it was a steep learning curve
Yeah.
and a lot of effort and so forth. But yeah, so I would say that self-publishing these days is certainly a lot easier, and it's it used to be that, you know, if you self-published, it was like, oh, seen as like, oh, well, that's a bit of a, you know,
It was negative,
easy.
wasn't it?
It was like a negative connotation to
Mm.
it, because it was like, well, that means you couldn't get a real publisher, or whatever it was, yeah. And but you find that a lot of even big names are publishing themselves these days because they have an audience. The reality is that if you do go through a publisher, you're not going to be making a whole lot of money. You know, you're lucky if you get $1 per book sale. So going in to publish a book with the intention, I'm going to make all this money, you're probably not going to get it from the book sales, whether you self-publish or go through traditional publishing. The thing is, though, you are creating instant authority by publishing a book. So you then become positioned as like the expert, or the person who, you know, knows what they're talking about. They've written a book. Well, they must know what they're talking about, right? So again, you know, you want to produce really good work, and something of quality that people want to read and share and so forth. But yeah, I would be probably more inclined to recommend people go self-publishing these days. If you do get a book deal, they, you know, produce the book and distribute it. That's great. You still got to promote it, you know. And
Yeah.
that was one of the things I found when I was going, oh, okay, I got a book deal. I'm you know, going for this great, you know, publisher in London and distribution worldwide, all this fantastic. Do they do any marketing? No, they don't do anything. So, you know,
Yeah.
you sacrifice 99% of the revenue going for a publisher, and you still got to do all the legwork
Yeah. So you
to
sort of
sell
wonder
yourself.
what are you getting when you're doing all the work, you know,
Yeah.
other than distribution. And that is a, you know, it is a consideration. I guess it comes down, and we've touched on this earlier, so much of it comes down to intention. Is your intention to position yourself in an authoritative way, as you said, instant authority? If that's the case, then producing a book is a great tool to achieve that. But if you are looking at doing it as an income earner, I think you probably need to have a think about where you sit within your industry. And, you know, you may be one of those people that a traditional publisher has gone, yes, we'll give you a great advance. We will also promote you because you've got cut through or a big social media following. But it is different, isn't it, than it
It's
used
very
to
rare.
be? Yeah, it
Yeah,
is.
it's rare that a publisher will come through and, you know, say, oh, we'll give you an advance or something like that. That's very
It's
rare.
just not as common now. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And so I think, yeah, self-publishing is definitely a great leverage, and you know, you can do it very cost effectively, and there's lots of you know, people you can outsource to design and put it together. There's lots of software solutions out there these days, and self-publishing solutions. I would say, you know, you don't want to say, oh, I'm going to print 5,000 books, you know, without testing the quality or the response, because you might have a garage full of books.
Yeah.
I've been there.
Yeah,
I've
yeah.
had boxes of books stacked up.
What's
Yeah.
the minimum that you've had to produce when you've self-published in terms of the quantity?
Well, look, it's changed a lot. Like back in the day, I think the minimum run you could do was 500 books,
Yeah,
which is still not that many, actually.
yeah.
But you still got to sell the 500 books and post them and all that sort of jazz. So, you know, it can be a fairly costly exercise. There's obviously a lot of options these days with print on demand now. So, you know, people order the book and then it gets printed and then gets sent. You know, there's a whole solution with that. I think that's more cost effective, and I think people are pretty happy to receive an ebook as well. You know, again, it's how you market it. So an ebook is really like a lead magnet. It's something you can use to get people to say, okay, this is a person of authority. They've written a book. They must know what they're talking about. And, you know, sign up for this newsletter and we'll send you this book for for
And
free
that
or
might
whatever.
satisfy that burning desire for people who want to be an author in a really inexpensive way. Again, positioning them in an authoritative way, making it, a decent size, and really going about it in a way that's thorough, like you would if you were publishing. But as you say, not necessarily the expense associated with physically publishing.
Yeah, exactly. And I would say also, there's that saying, right on the back of giants. So if you can get someone who's already published and has a name and a following and a database, asking them to write an endorsement for the book or a foreword, or getting or quoting them in your book, and then contacting the author and say, hey, I quoted this thing, obviously getting their permission, then they're going to be incentivized to wanting to share what you do as well. So that can be a huge opportunity just in that instance.
So on that, I actually am writing a book at the moment, and I went for the Byron Writers Festival, a workshop about marketing your book. Traditional publishing or self-publishing, and I'm in no way affiliated with this lady, but I thought I'd share with our readers. I don't know if you can see this lady, Anna. Look, it's my book, and what a great name for a book, by the way. But she's actually gone into heaps of detail. So if anyone is really thinking of doing it, I've found this really helpful because she goes nitty gritty in terms of, and she's just said a lot of the things you just said about getting a quote, getting an endorsement. But if you go traditional publishing, she breaks that down for you. She tells you sort of approximately what you're going to get back, and she goes into the self-publishing details. So if anyone is really dead set on wanting to do it, this is helpful and it might be a good tool. And I'm sure you've probably got I'm just looking at the bookcase here where I'm filming, and
hundreds,
there's hundreds of books, but you a lot of your books are there, and we will go into a dedicated book publishing interview in the future, because it is something that a lot of our audience are keen on doing, and I see the benefit. As a practitioner, so many of our members have so much knowledge, they've studied so much, and they've got a really unique perspective, and people want to hear it. And I think as much as we love short-term, little snippets of videos and social media, we also love a long-form book where we can dive into a topic and learn something, or audible versions as well. So
exactly. And I think a lot of that's to do with, your storytelling and, sharing, because people love a good how-to, but then it's what's the application of the how-to? What's a real life example? So case studies can be, really interesting ways for people to see, oh, this is, the reader is going, oh, that's like me, or I can put myself into that story, and that's been like that reminds me of my journey, and then there's an interest from that way as well. I mean, we were talking about different ways to market yourself as well. Like there was a great book I read years ago called 1001 Ways to Market Your Book. That seems like a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
But it's a chunky book. You can still buy it. I don't think you can buy it as a new. You'd have to get a secondhand copy. But that was a very cool book, and it had some very unusual out of the box ideas. They had one technique I used, which actually worked. It's called reverse shoplifting. So what you do is you take your book, your physical book that's published and whatnot, self-published, and you put it in the bookshops around your area. So you physically put it on the shelf. Then people pick up the book. They go to the counter and say, I want to buy this book. And then they're looking up on the system.
They can't find the code.
Yeah. And in there you can then you can put a little slip if you would like to order this book. And then they go, oh, you can order it this way. So I've actually done that and had bookshops contact me saying, hey, we'd love to get copies of your book. Can we order 20 or whatever it is? Wow. So it's completely out of the box, right?
Yes.
But that worked really well, and I thought it was also really funny.
Yes. Yeah. And you're probably heading into the bookshop and like pulling it out and feeling, as you say, like a reverse shoplifter. That's great. Yeah. So another thing, and this leads on to the books, is podcasts. So a lot of our members wanted to know, how do you become a podcast guest? How particularly you, Lawrence, like I feel like I'm sharing all the different podcasts that you've been on, and and all the wellness summits that you've spoken at. And so how do you become a sought after speaker and podcast guest? And obviously part of that is you have built your career, and so longevity and consistency in business is probably one of the first things there. But how have you, as the landscape has changed and podcasts have become a thing, how have you marketed yourself to be in a position of authority?
Yeah, so I think probably to start out with that, you would just look at the various look what's in the market, right? And look which podcasts you like and enjoy, and then get in touch with the people who are the speakers, right? And start small. You don't have to contact
Yeah.
Joe Rogan, right? You're not going to get on the Joe Rogan show
Yeah.
probably in your first attempt. But yeah, certainly build small and then go up from there. So it's about, again, oh yeah, I was on this show, that show, that show, and that show, because I went and contacted them, and that they'll probably have their their gatekeeper that you've got to speak to and convince that it's a good idea. I think there's quite a number of directories online too, where you can, put yourself as someone who is a speaker, if that's what you want to do.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so there's, you can just Google search that. I can't remember the name of one in particular off the top of my head at the moment, but yeah, there's lots of different ways that, it's just really like that cold outreach and doing a pitch and saying, hey, this is what I could bring to the table. This is the topic I could speak on. I'd love to join. Once you've got one, it's actually pretty easy. It's the same also, like once you become a published author, it can be a springboard to
the next
other thing. And another way, I guess, you can build authority is to, do PR media, so like paid articles in magazines, getting published in magazines, or other sort of media outlets where you can be promoted. That helps, again, build your your Google knowledge panel. Yeah, so it's like your authority position. And then people go, oh, okay, well, they were published in here and there, cool. Or so-and-so endorsed them. They must be good. Oh, okay, well, we'd love to invite you on. So at first you've got to go out and find the places you want to be on. After a while, you build enough authority, people will be approaching you saying, hey, we'd love to have you on. And then you can pick and choose a bit more. But again, it's that whole idea of just start,
Just go there. Yeah. So this was a great question, because I mean, there's so many answers, but what is the next big thing that you see presenting itself in the wellness market? I mean, it never used to be called wellness either. It was complementary therapists and alternative therapists. And now it's, wellness as a word is a much more mainstream word. I think rightly so. Interest in our health and longevity and how we can live a better life has become more mainstream, which is wonderful, particularly for our industry. But what do you think that next frontier is in terms of, obviously in 23 years, you've seen a lot of interesting sort of dips and rises within the world and general trends. But have you, I know you do a lot of reading, a lot of listening, a lot of research in this space. What do you think is the next big thing?
Yeah, well, the trends I'm seeing is that a lot of people in this space and other industries as well, they're combining forces. So people are collaborating, or they're bringing together a bunch of different specialists and then presenting a new platform like that. So like a lot of collaboration, I think is definitely on trend. The idea of like, oh, I do it all myself and it's me against them. It's more like, oh, how do we work together? How can we leverage each other's databases, influence, and how can we collaborate? Which doesn't mean you're going into business together. It might be just you work on a project together, or you're looking at how you guys can put together a summit or something like that. Like a wellness summit. So I think getting involved in those sort of more grassroots community collaborative environments, I'm seeing definitely a lot more trending in that way. The other main obvious thing is AI and how that's going to influence how people work. And I know we haven't really touched on that too much yet, but it's this idea that we can certainly leverage. It shouldn't be something we're afraid of, but it's like, well, how do we leverage this, and how do we get AI to do some of the heavy lifting, and not relying on it solely for our, not like, okay, write a social media post and go, it's done. It's like, no, it's not done. You've got to now finesse and tweak it and make it your own. It can be a great starting point. But yeah, I certainly think there'll be an explosion in terms of AI and integrated into wellness and whatnot. And in all of that, right, we don't want to lose our humanness and our our personality, what's unique about us, because AI, at this stage anyway, there is a differentiation between the human and AI, right? Sometimes it's hard to tell, and it's going to head more and more towards that, where we don't know so much, if we're talking to a bot or if we're talking to a person. But at this stage, I think it's the
It will just become more
personality.
sophisticated, won't it? Yeah.
It will, yeah. So I think that's, not losing our heart in the journey is super important, yeah, because that's what makes us unique.
Yeah, and so we did have a lot of questions about AI, and there were a couple of themes. One of them, and I thought this was an interesting one. I personally wouldn't do this, but maybe because I am also a practitioner. But so, this person raised a lot of people are using AI to self-prescribe. So you might write in, I have stomach pain, I've had these symptoms. What do you recommend into ChatGPT, for example? Now, I don't know how many people are doing it, but it was a concern for this particular member. How do you speak to that question? And then we can ask some of the other ones around AI.
Yeah, well, I think again, it's a good foundation. It could be a good starting point, but then it's like, okay, then we get down to the more personalized experience, and we're going to get that from a therapist, like or a practitioner, not so much just it's information, right? So it can be a good information. I mean, people have been doing that for years anyway. You search on Google, you want to get some, how do I do this or that, or but when it comes down to the actual experience, and there's I think, the personal experience is always, I think, going to be far superior.
As soon as I read it, the thing that occurred to me was, for so many years, people have dieted and they've tried all these different diets, but no one diet works for every body type. And I think when you go see a practitioner who takes into account your age, your cultural background, your genetic background, your lifestyle, that is when you get the diet or nutrition plan or pillars of health recommendation for you. And you could just follow the latest fad, but it may not be right for your body type. And I think, there's an element of you need your customer to understand the basics of, I could go to ChatGPT to find out if I need to quit smoking in this particular way, but I could go and see a therapist and it will work.
Yeah, I think it's about the piece that's often missing is the accountability part. So you might follow a diet, or you might, it's like what people have a personal trainer. It's like, I've got to show up at 7 a.m. at the gym because my personal trainer is waiting for me, and I've paid for the appointment in advance. So I better get my ass out of bed, right? So and get there and do it. If an AI, you're getting a ping on your phone as a notification from AI saying, make sure you do that, you can be like, maybe not. So
that's
I think
a good point.
There's something around commitment and commitment to others, to humans. I think it's super important. Because again,
and the connection, that human connection, when someone gets you and sees you, I think practitioners lead from the heart, and if you see someone and what they're going through, empathy is so much a part of the equation. So
it is, so there's it's about, people want to generally be congruent, like if you say you're going to do the thing, you're going to do the thing, so I think that's what's different about that, is there's a human element of like, show up, do your best, that sort of thing.
So then the other question we had on AI was around what you've sort of answered it, but what is your outlook on how you can integrate AI, and have you used AI within IICT? And we certainly have. I know in marketing, we use quite a few different tools, and in the email that is linked to this particular webinar, we're actually going to link the journal article we just published with all the different AI tools that are out there. And one of our content writers, Kate Duncan, has done a brilliant job at breaking down all the different apps that are out there that are AI generated, how much they cost, their subscription benefits, but specifically how they could benefit complementary therapists. So that will be linked for those who want to dive deeper. But just in answering that question, how have we used AI in the business, and how have you integrated it without giving it too much power?
So I mean, it's a good question, and I think most of our team are jumping on, as we call it, chatty. So, so it's getting very personalized. So yeah, just in terms of like, creating a forecast or, or doing a competitor analysis or market analysis or gathering a lot of information and being able to condense it into something succinct or, writing a sales letter. And then how do we put, in this particular tone and so forth. So, yeah, you can go very deep into it. Again, I always still see these things as not a one and done. It's, bringing the personality of you into it. But, we're starting to use it as well, just in terms of analyzing, it's listening to calls when people call in, and we analyze like what was the general outcome. Being able to measure the results of our internal team, using it as a benchmark, so how we can improve and so forth as well. So, yeah, there's so much you can do with it, and I think it's just things that would take months can get done in seconds with it. So it's a really powerful tool. So I think I would encourage people not to. Just see it as like you've got another expert in the room who can assist you, and it's pretty cheap, right?
But it's also, again, using a human to check it all. It's that reiteration that, it's only as good as the information you put in, and you still need a human who understands the business to check it. So a lot of people ask, how do you grow your business? There's so many hats, admin, etc. AI can really support you with a lot of those things, but you've still got to double check, and you can't think it's literally someone employed by your business. You've still got to have, check-ins and all of that. All right, we're on our very last question. Business can be all-consuming. How do you keep the balance with your own health and wellness? And I would like to sort of add to that, throughout the different life cycles of your business, when you first started and you wore all the hats and you were forming what IICT looked like, through to now where you've got, a team and you can probably delegate and not feel as under the pump. So how do you look after your health and wellness throughout the journey?
Yeah, so layered questions there, but I'd start with like, what does my ideal week look like? Yeah, so and then chunking down or blocking out time. So it might be that I do my admin, and calls and whatnot at the beginning and at the end of the day, and having some rigor around only checking email once a day or twice, not like every time, so like for me, I switch off notifications for just about everything.
Same.
I do that so I don't get distracted, right? Because we're easily distracted. So having a bit of planning around, the ideal week and what hours am I going to work, and building into that, when is my free time? When's my self-care? Building in when is my sleep rhythm? Sleep so important, right? And diet, lifestyle, exercise. So yeah, you can go really deep on this and plan your ideal year. And these are my vacation times. This is when I'm taking a day off. This is when I'm having holiday
mental
time.
Health day.
My mental health day, whatever it is. Yeah. So having the if you go into life without a plan, then life gives you the plan. Yeah. And if you can plan your life, then generally that's what happens. Yeah. So again, so having a goal, having a focus, having an understanding of the why that you do the thing as well is super important. That's what motivates you. That's what gets you out of the bed. So again, like, what's the desired outcome? I want to be in this, whatever income by the end of the year, or having a goal and then working incrementally towards that. So yeah, I always plan, generally plan at least a year ahead, my ideal year, and I find that's really helpful. There's a great book, again, I'm not getting any benefit by mentioning this guy, but he's really great. So Dan Mattel, Buy Back Your Time is a great book where you can look at how you can leverage AI, but also, leverage personal assistant or a virtual assistant to help do some of the heavy lifting. Most of us are like, we're not great at everything.
No.
And we shouldn't have to be.
No.
So like I can do my accounting and bookkeeping and stuff. I'm really awful at it, but I can do it. and
Yeah.
I shouldn't do it. So, then I have like a bookkeeper and I have an accountant and I do all those things that, they love that stuff. I don't love it. So I have this, it's this idea that, if you're having procrastination in a certain area, it's your intuitive self saying, you need help, you need support. So who can I get to help me with this thing? Another great book is Who Not How. Yeah, and that's by Dan Sullivan. So that's a great, short book, but really useful.
And often when you start out, you're sort of worried about people. You don't want to give away too much of the profit that you have. But ultimately, if you're doing all of the things, you're not going to grow because you're spending time doing things that are harder that you don't love. In your case, you were saying admin, whereas if you outsource that, then you've got more time to pursue the sales, to get the clients doing the thing you love. And it's a mindset shift into how can you, as you say, buy back your time, or how can you spend time doing the things that you know you're brilliant at. And we also have an ebook and an article which we're linking in this email too, about self-care for the practitioner, or nurturing the nurtures. And it is really important in this industry where energetically you're giving a lot to give back to yourself. It should be considered part of your business to fill your own cup, because it is a lot, and you look at all these doctors who are out there working ridiculous hours, and now they've put in sort of caveats around they can't work more than a certain amount of hours because it's dangerous for them to be on the operating table. And we need to feel the same way in our industry, that we need to make sure we're living a more balanced life, so we're giving our best, and therefore, our clients are happy, and then they're going to recommend us, and then we grow our business.
Yeah, exactly. And look, it is no small feat to be successful as a practitioner, right? So it's going to take effort and time and all that, but you need to balance that so that you don't burn out, or feel resentful to the fact that you're having to deliver this thing. It's going to shine through with how you deliver your service. So I think it's important that if you're very intentional about the self-care and the time you need so that you are your best, and not maybe backing back-to-back clients, maybe have the break and replenish, re-energize, then you go back in, because you've got each time you're interacting with a customer, it's from their perspective, this is the first time, right? You might have done it hundreds of times, but for them, it's their first experience.
Feeling rushed, when there's someone's got a client right after you, and you feel sort of this, you're all relaxed, and then you feel this urgency to get out.
Get out. So
there's nothing worse. So I think it is nice to allow a buffer. Obviously, you don't want to abuse that, but it is good. Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Lawrence. There's obviously, I work with you, and I know there's a gazillion more beautiful pearls of wisdom to be sharing, but that leads me into a very exciting announcement that we will be launching an IICT podcast in the later in this year, and we'll be sharing a lot more wisdom from Lawrence on all these topics and more. And we're going to drill down very specifically on, growing your business, pricing your business, all different models. If you're an online only business, how can you make that work for you? There were lots and lots of questions we weren't able to get to today, so we definitely will get to all of those in the podcast. But as I've mentioned a few times, in the email that you got, this link for the webinar are quite a few ebook, which are member benefit tools, and links to our journal articles that will answer some of the questions we've talked about today. But we would really love your feedback on this. This is our first webinar masterclass with Lawrence, and so we'd love your feedback. So feel free to hit reply to the email or share on socials how you found it, because we're really here to help you. This is very, very important to IICT that we're giving back to you as members. So thank you so much again for your time, Lawrence, and we look forward to hearing your responses from today.
Yeah, thanks so much. And like Kate said, feel free to give comments or other questions or other areas. We could do a part 2 at some point in the future as well. So I know we had so many people wanting to ask so many different things. There's only so much time. But it's great. And for me, it's like having done this for 30 something years now, just to be able to share some of that is a real, great thing for me as well. I get to share something back. I love that, doing that as well. So happy to help.
Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Enjoy, and we'll look forward to hearing from you on your feedback. Okay, bye.
Ciao, ciao.